Yeah.
And you know what? Coco Guaff is calling it a night. That's unfortunate. Just the second time Coco Guaff has retired.
My arm is like going like this the whole time, so I'm sorry.
That's tough to see. As Coco Guaff retires just for the second time in her career. And that is unfortunate, but for Alex Eala, she gets the win. What a nice exchange. That was nice to see.
Very gracious from Coco Guaff.
At first, it looked like another routine day for Coco Guaff at the Indian Wells Open. The favorite started strong, the crowd expected dominance, and the script felt predictable. Then everything began to unravel. A fearless 19-year-old started chasing every ball, attacking every opening, and turning pressure into a shocking takeover. By the time the match ended, Alex Eala had forced the tennis world to pay attention. Now fans everywhere are asking the same unsettling question. Was this just an upset, or the arrival of tennis's next global phenomenon?
The last time I saved match points, so probably when I was like 15, but yeah, I'm really happy to get through today. It was a long one. I know you guys... I know you guys are probably here for Alex, so I'm sorry to... I'm sorry to make you wait, but if I'm not...
If you believe Alex, Eala is the future of tennis, hit subscribe and stay with us for more. The tennis world thought it already knew how this story would end. A top-ranked superstar walks onto the court, a rising teenager tries to hang on, and the scoreboard eventually restores the natural order of things. That was the script many people expected when Coco Guaff stepped onto the court at Indian Wells Open to face the rapidly rising 19-year-old Alex Eala.
Alexandra, so many emotions right now. First of all, no one wants to have to play against an injured player. I am sure your heart is breaking for Coco right now.
Yes. First and foremost, I want to say Happy Women's Day, everybody. I want to say thank you to all the incredible women who have paved the way and who have advocated for themselves and for other women. Among them is Coco. So thank you, Coco, for being an amazing competitor and amazing role model. And I really hope that everything is well and you will recover soon.
After all, rankings rarely lie, experience usually wins, and just a couple of weeks earlier, the American star had handled the young Filipino talent with relative comfort. But sport has a strange habit of ripping up expectations in the most dramatic ways possible.
Chris, what was your reaction to the quotes that she put out?
Yeah, I was a bit stunned as well. Like Coco, I went and sit in the crowd. I got a ticket. It was the first time I'd had to scan a ticket to enter a tennis match in a long time.
You know, we have a suite here.
Yeah, but I
Chris.
didn't. I wanted to, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be with the fans.
That's
Coco.
the difference between you and I. I was sweet life in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was scanning it in like everyone else. So I was super excited. Coco got off to a good start, but then you started to see her making this movement that made me think that something was wrong with her back. She was kind of doing a stretch with her left arm, left wrist, but I initially thought it was a back issue.
Because what unfolded that day in Indian Wells was not just another early round match between a favorite and an underdog. It became one of those moments that forces everyone watching to pause and rethink what they believed about the hierarchy of the sport.
In my perspective today, obviously, it was a different scoreline, so maybe it caused it. I thought it was fun to play in. And I don't know, I think tennis needs more of this, and yeah, I think it's great, and just to see a nation so proud of someone, and especially a nation that's pretty underrepresented in this sport, I think is pretty cool to see. So I also liked, like, even at, I think it was like 6-0, 4-1 or 4-0 or something, and she was smiling. And I think that's something that, you know, you can't buy that. So yeah, I definitely, and I see why people want to root for her.
By the time the match ended, the conversation had completely shifted, and even Guaff herself would step forward, with a surprising admission that turned heads across the tennis world. According to the world number 4, the best player on that court was not her. It was Eala. That statement alone tells you just how extraordinary the afternoon became. At the start, however, nothing about the match suggested chaos was coming. Guaff entered the contest carrying the confidence of a player who had already proven herself on the biggest stages. She had been inside the top ranks for years. She had faced the pressure of Grand Slam crowds, and she was widely expected to move comfortably through this round. And for a brief moment, the match seemed to follow that familiar pattern. Guaff opened with authority, taking the first 2 games of the match with the kind of sharp movement and confident shot-making that has made her one of the most respected competitors on the WTA Tour. Her timing looked clean, her defense looked impenetrable, and the early rhythm suggested she was settling into the kind of performance that would quietly end the contest before it could even begin to turn dramatic. For fans watching closely, the early momentum reinforced a simple assumption: this would be routine. Yet tennis matches often reveal their true story only after the opening exchanges, and as the rallies begin to stretch longer, something fascinating started to happen on the opposite side of the net.
I think my focus was really was a big point of my match today, and my strategy, as well as the intensity in my legs and the intensity I was able to produce to be aggressive. Yeah, I took those learnings from the last match. I tried to do things differently, better on certain things I can control. I know that Coco is a great player, and you know she's really going to give you a hard time. So there's nothing much you can do about the other person playing well. So I tried to focus on what I could control.
Eala began adjusting. At first, the shift was subtle. She started reading the court conditions more carefully, adapting her footwork to the famously slow surfaces of Indian Wells, and gradually extending rallies that initially seemed destined to end quickly. With every passing game, she appeared more comfortable navigating the pace of the match. Then the momentum began to tilt. Instead of being overwhelmed by Guaff's athleticism and defensive range, Eala started turning the rallies into physical chess matches. Her positioning became sharper, her shot selection more creative, and the court coverage that had looked merely solid at the beginning suddenly became explosive. Before long, the crowd sensed something unusual unfolding. The teenager was not just competing. She was dictating. What made the shift even more impressive was the way Eala handled the pressure of the moment. Facing a top-ranked opponent on one of the biggest stages in tennis is usually enough to rattle even experienced professionals. Yet the young Filipino star carried herself with remarkable composure. Each time Guaff tried to reassert control, Eala produced an answer. When the rallies grew longer, she showed the stamina to stay in them. When the angles tightened, she displayed the creativity to escape them. And when the match reached crucial points, she revealed the kind of fearless shot-making that separates promising players from future stars. The transformation of the first set became almost surreal. After securing the opening games, Guaff suddenly found herself chasing the momentum rather than controlling it.
Let me tell you, I'm definitely not normally like this when I lose.
No.
But this was definitely a special circumstance. I remember the last couple of match points, I was able to save a match point, you know.
Yeah.
And I just tried to prolong the match as long as I could because I knew that this is where I wanted to be. And then after I sat down, after the handshake, I looked up and just so many flags of the Philippines and so many Filipinos.
Eala surged forward with a wave of confidence, breaking through the Americans. Defenses with clever placements, quick transitions across the court, and a relentless willingness to attack openings the moment they appeared. By the time the set ended with a commanding 6-2 scoreline, the crowd inside the stadium had witnessed something extraordinary. The underdog had not merely survived the early pressure, she had completely taken over the match. Fans who had arrived, expecting a straightforward contest, now found themselves watching a rising star announce her presence on one of tennis's grandest stages. Eala's blend of athleticism, intelligence, and bold shot selection created an atmosphere that felt electric. Every point carried a sense that something special might happen next. And as the second set began, the momentum remained firmly in her favor. Eala continued applying pressure from the baseline, forcing Guaff to cover enormous ground as rallies stretched into physically demanding exchanges. The slow Indian Wells surface, which often turns matches into endurance battles, seemed perfectly suited to Eala's style. Her ability to sprint from corner to corner, reset her position instantly, and counterattack at the right moment made each rally feel like a puzzle her opponent struggled to solve. For a player only 19 years old, the maturity of her approach was striking. Yet just as the match appeared to be building toward a dramatic finish, the contest took an unexpected turn.
Vibes, you talk about this being a global sport. How about the Filipino fans? For Alex, Eala has become an absolute phenomenon on the courts. This is an early Verizon vantage point on TC Live. Everywhere she goes, she gets swarmed.
Guaff began showing signs of physical discomfort. And after attempting to continue through the early games of the second set, the American star ultimately made the difficult decision to retire from the match due to injury. It was not the way anyone hoped the contest would end. Victory by retirement often leaves a strange emotional space for athletes, particularly when the match itself had been shaping into such a compelling battle. For Eala, the moment was bittersweet. She had outplayed one of the top players in the world and seized control of the match, yet the final conclusion arrived under circumstances neither competitor wanted. What happened next, however, revealed just as much about Eala's character as her performance had revealed about her talent. Instead of celebrating wildly or focusing on the milestone victory, she spoke with genuine concern for her opponent. In her post-match remarks, Eala emphasized how much respect she had for Guaff and made it clear that she never wanted a match to end because of injury. Her reaction reflected a level of maturity that resonated with fans around the world. Moments like that often shape a player's reputation as much as their victories do, and in that instant, Eala demonstrated the kind of sportsmanship that earns admiration far beyond the scoreboard. Yet the most surprising reaction came from the player who had just been forced to step off the court. Rather than offering excuses or deflecting attention from the loss, Coco Guaff spoke openly about what she had witnessed during the match.
Give Alex a lot of credit, though, because it is never easy. We're going to talk about it later with Lerner Tien, but never easy to play an opponent who is injured. And the way that she was able to put her head down and only focus on her side of the court, I think was a very mature thing to do. I loved her talk about Coco after the match with Andrew Krasny, where she gave Coco a lot of praise, but she also kind of gave the Filipino crowd who did show up to support her a lot of love, and they loved it. She wished her mother a happy birthday. It was a really, really special scene after the match,
and her words carried enormous weight. Guaff acknowledged that the slow conditions at Indian Wells create extremely physical matches, where long rallies test every aspect of a player's movement and endurance. In that environment, she explained, Eala's skill set becomes particularly dangerous. Her speed across the court, her ability to recover instantly after difficult shots, and her confidence in constructing long points combine to create a style that thrives under those conditions. In fact, Guaff went even further. She openly admitted that Eala looked like the best player on the court that day. For a top-ranked competitor to offer that level of praise after a loss speaks volumes about the respect developing around the young Filipino star. Guaff's assessment was not simply polite sportsmanship. It reflected the reality of what had unfolded during the match. Eala had forced one of the world's best players into uncomfortable territory and taken control through a combination of tactical awareness and relentless energy. And the ripple effects of that performance were felt far beyond the court. tennis analysts, former professionals, and fans quickly began discussing what Eala's rise could mean for the future of the sport. Among the voices weighing in was former American tennis star Sam Querrey, who had already been predicting big things for the young talent before the tournament even began. Querrey had boldly suggested that Eala might eventually become an even bigger force in women's tennis than some of the sport's established stars.
How far she can go, I think these courts will suit her game a lot better because everything gets slowed down for the lefty to be able to start working the angles, working that forehand line. But she is in that killer section of where all those big hitters are that Chris mentioned earlier. She's got to get through some big players to be able to even contend in round of 16.
Yeah, but I think that this fanfare that she's been getting over the past few months can cause some players to do some incredible things. We saw it in Australia. There were mobs and lines of people to make it to her side courts. Hopefully, we're able to get her in a big court so everyone is able to stay safe around the grounds.
After watching her dismantle expectations at Indian Wells, that prediction suddenly seemed far less outrageous. One of the most fascinating aspects of Eala's emergence has been the attention she brings to every tournament she enters. Her matches have drawn enormous crowds, and her presence on the schedule has started to generate a level of excitement usually reserved for long-established champions. Reports from Indian Wells indicated that her opening match attracted millions of dollars in ticket sales and set a remarkable attendance mark, an extraordinary achievement for a player still climbing toward the top tiers of the rankings. Those numbers reflect something beyond pure performance. They suggest star power. Fans are not simply watching Eala because she wins matches. They are watching because her style of play is captivating. She combines athletic intensity with creativity, mixing clever angles, daring shot selections, and relentless defensive speed. The result is a brand of tennis that feels unpredictable and thrilling. Even fellow competitors have acknowledged the atmosphere surrounding her matches. Top players like Jessica Pegula have spoken about the overwhelming energy in stadiums when Eala steps onto the court. Crowds grow louder, rallies feel more dramatic, and the entire event takes on a sense of anticipation. For a teenager who has not yet fully broken into the top ranks, that level of attention is extraordinary, and it raises an intriguing question.
She has now a guaranteed prize money reaching 105 and 720 US dollar, about 6.3 million just by reaching the round of 16, and a potential earning. And this is big, man. If she win her next match, this will be approximately 11.5 million pesos or 193,645 US dollars. And from what I've heard, she will face world rank number 14 Linda Noskova.
What happens if Eala continues this trajectory? Her victory over Guaff added another impressive milestone to a rapidly growing resume that already includes wins against several elite opponents. Each triumph reinforces the idea that she is not merely a promising prospect, but a genuine contender capable of challenging the sport's established hierarchy. If she were to capture the Indian Wells title during her debut appearance, the accomplishment would place her in a historic category few players have ever reached. Winning one of tennis's most prestigious tournaments on a first attempt would instantly elevate her standing in the sport. More importantly, it would signal that a new era might be quietly approaching. Because tennis history often turns on moments like this. A young player defeats a superstar, the crowd senses a shift, and suddenly the future looks different than it did the day before. Whether Eala ultimately claims the trophy or not, her performance against Coco Guaff has already changed the way people view her potential. She no longer appears as a distant prospect waiting her turn. She looks like someone ready to compete with the very best right now. And perhaps the most remarkable part of the story is how calmly she carries that rising expectation. Throughout the tournament, Eala has remained focused on the fundamentals of her game and the simple joy of competing at the highest level. There is no sense of panic in her approach, no rush to declare herself the next superstar.
What did you make of her run in Miami and her as a player? Yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. She uses her leftiness really well. When she went on that run, it was really impressive how she handled the big moments on the stadium court. What's interesting about her draw in Madrid is if she beats Tomova, who does she play second round? It would be Swiatek, who has that bye. So I love this in women's tennis right now, where you get like a compelling matchup maybe a month after the first one.
Instead, she continues doing what brought her to this moment in the first place, moving relentlessly across the court, trusting her instincts, and embracing the challenge of every opponent who steps into her path. For fans watching the evolution of women's tennis, that mindset is incredibly exciting. Because when talent, discipline, and humility combine in a player this young, the possibilities begin to feel endless. So the real question now is not whether Alex Eala belongs on this stage. Her performance has already answered that. The real question is how far this extraordinary rise can go, and whether the teenager who stunned Indian Wells might soon reshape the entire landscape of the sport. For Alex Eala, the performance against Coco Guaff did more than secure another win on the scoreboard. It shifted perception. What makes that realization even more compelling is the timing. Women's tennis is currently filled with powerful competitors, fighting for dominance, from established champions to hungry newcomers. Yet Eala's rise has introduced a different kind of excitement because her style blends relentless movement, tactical intelligence, and fearless creativity. That combination makes every match feel unpredictable. If she continues building on performances like the one at Indian Wells Open, the teenager from the Philippines may soon find herself at the center of the sport's biggest rivalries. The attention surrounding her is already growing with every round. And now the tennis world is starting to ask the same question. Is this simply a breakout tournament or the beginning of something much bigger?